Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, April 29th, 2020. Let's take a look at our space weather right now. Our solar wind speed coming in at 342 kilometers per second with a density of 3.8. And right now, it's showing 0 spots on spaceweather.com. However, and this is kind of a neat little situation here, but let's take a look at our sunspots. Now, this one right here is solar cycle 25. Watch how that one just kind of pops, goes away instantly. Now, as that one goes away, say hello to AR 2762. Watch this here at the last second. You see a little bit of a development. So again, this would be solar cycle 25 section up here. This is already does not qualify as a sunspot. So they are already saying this is just an active region. So no more sunspot qualities from this particular region. This one fizzles out, and as soon as it does, we have another one emerging, AR 2762. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. But right now the official number is 0, as this sunspot had just formed. So they don't have all the details in, but we are not by any means saying that this won't be a sunspot. If they are already labeling it, or will label it, AR 2762. So that's 3 different sunspot numbers here this week. That still keeps us at 75% of 2020 without sunspots. So still, minimum conditions are more than in effect here. TCI coming in at 3.51. It rose just a little bit. And right now our KP indices sitting at a 1, with the 24-hour max is also at a 1. And it's safe to say that we could be expecting some seismic activity of 6.5 or higher in the next 24 hours. We do have a coronal hole that is turning away from Earth now, and we will be dealing with the possibility of a solar wind stream affecting our magnetic field by April 30th. So we will continue to monitor that situation as well. So let's take a look at the space weather section here at the grandsolarminimum.com to kind of check out and see if what we're expecting here in the near future. And once we get past these 3 bright regions here, the sunspot in the northern region, we do have a little bit of activity that's just breached the eastern limb right there. That could also be something that could develop. So we are starting to see flurries of action from solar cycle 25, and solar cycle 24 is also winding down all the way as we speak. We have been pretty quiet for the month of April, and here in the last couple of days, we've had some solar minimum sunspot activity. Again, these sunspots are very small, guys. When you're talking about sunspot number 11 or 14, that's a very small grouping. So during solar max, you're going to see sunspot numbers 24, 36. You might even see as high as the 40s, 50s, 60s. So just to give you an idea, even though we are having a couple of sunspots this month, the size of these things are very minor compared to what we see during an active period of solar max. So not really that concerned at this point. And monitoring the KP indices is another big indication as well of just how low solar activity is. You can clearly see on the solar X-ray flux chart, and the solar proton flux remains flat, while geomagnetic activity continues its downward slide over the past 4 days. It looks like it's continuing to head in that particular path. All right, so top news here at Grand Solar Minimum. Government panel warns of a magnitude of a 9 quake tsunami as high as 98 feet that could strike northern Japan. Now, this was brought to a government panel on April 21st, based on a worst-case scenario, adding that the mega earthquake centered around the Japan Trench and the Kuril Trench could be imminent. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons why, and this was an interesting read, they think that this is a cycle type of earthquake and tsunami. In fact, the latest one that was observed was in the 17th century. adding to that, they believe they found a cycle here where this kind of quake and tsunami wave happen together every 300 to 400 years. Well, the last one that was major that was observed was in the 17th century. Now, they do mention Fukushima here. And that was the 2000. The one here in 2011 with the earthquake and tsunami that ravaged northeastern Japan and killed 15,000 people. And as I was reading this article, the fact that they're looking at a cycle and previous simulation by the panel based on the study of tsunami deposits in the past 6,000 years covered damage to 7 prefectures, which are, bear with me, I had my 12-year-old who loves Japimation, anything animation, Japanese. He actually is studying the language right now, but let's see if he'll be proud of me here. But the prefectures that they were monitoring about the damage from these past tsunamis were Hokkaido. I already messed it up. Hokkaido, Aomori, Owati, Miyagi, Fukushima, Ibaraki, and Chiba are the prefectures that they are studying right here and indicating that the largest tsunami was at 29.7 meters, 97 feet, is predicted to hit Miyako in the prefecture of Iwate in Hokkaido. Areas around Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings Incorporated Fukushima nuclear power plant, which was paralyzed by the 2011 calamity, is forecast to be hit as well, while a tsunami of around 5 to 20 meters could slam the coast of Miyagi and Fukushima. Parts of Aomori facing the Sea of Japan may also be affected, as well as Mutsu Bay and the prefecture, with the prefectural government office of Aomori City Hall predicted to be submerged more than 3 feet of water. The cabinet launched a group to calculate the predicted disaster impacts on people, buildings, and the economy, as well as possible countermeasures. And a lot of these conclusions will be released in May or March of 2021. So it's not a matter of immediate, but something they feel confident that they have a little bit of time to get ready for. And a lot of part of the plans that they're going to have here is you got to think about this is going to have to be a large-scale evacuation. And it even states right here, a massive earthquake of this class shown in the simulation would be difficult to deal with by developing hard infrastructure such as coast levees. To save people's lives, the basic policy would be an evacuation. And this was according to the head of the panel and a professor at the University of Tokyo. Now, can they pinpoint it? Can they pinpoint this earthquake? Predicted. Some probably could, some probably can. I can imagine. But how do you evacuate for this event ahead of time? And it's going to be really interesting to see these conclusions by March of 2021. This is something I will definitely be following and paying attention. Thanks again to the watchers here for putting this on their website and covering it as well. Springtime winter wonderland blankets New York and New England as calendar nears May. Up to 14 inches of snow recorded. This was over the weekend. The areas that saw the snowfall was the Adirondacks, the Mohawk Valley, and the Catskill Mountains. Tesco County Lakes, they got 14 inches of snow. A lot of areas that I just mentioned, the Mohawk Valley region, located between the Adirondacks and the Catskill Mountains, some counties received over 8 inches of snow, while others got only rain in the lower elevations. I can tell you I lived in the lower elevation part, and we definitely got rain all weekend. Some snowflakes mixed in overnight. It says in towns around Albany, snow totals where 4 to 7 inches were recorded. While it said snowfall this late in spring isn't unheard of, it certainly isn't common. However, while some residents have seen such late snowfall in the past, it certainly isn't a sight to expect every year. A look back at Albany's snow record revealed that the last late snow occurs in late April in the region generally every 7 to 10 years. Ironically, that you could say that could line up with solar minimum. Who knows? It's just a guess. And the latest date of Albany snow in Albany was May 18th, 2002. He said the average last snow day in Albany is April 5th. I can tell you right now that last year, this time, there was hail on the 27th of April. So if you're looking at patterns and what the weather was doing a year ago in Albany, we had hail. Temperatures were a little bit warmer, I believe. And then this year, we're talking about snowfall. 4 to 7 inches around the Albany area. That's quite a bit of snow for this time of year as well. So just thought that was interesting to bring up. And there is some indication, again, I said this about 3 days ago, I believe, or 4 days ago, that we are possibly looking at a mid-May snow in the Northeast. Very many people were quick to point out that you cannot rely on GFS that far out. But I'll tell you the reason why. I have a feeling about this one being right, and I'll show you guys at the end. There is a pattern to this that I've kind of noticed, and we'll see if I'm right. I could be wrong. All right, moving along here to our next article. Thousands evacuated as ice jam forces floodwaters into Canadian town. All right, I know all about ice jam floods. Up to 15,000 residents were told to abandon their homes in Fort McMurray, Alberta, after an ice jam caused rivers to burst their banks, sending floodwaters into the town. Officials in the Canadian town have been warning for the possibility of flooding during the spring melt for weeks. Fears came to fruition early Sunday morning as ice began to break and jam on the Athabasca and Clearwater rivers. The ice has since created blockage almost 15.5 miles long, impeding the flow of rivers and spreading water into the towns. Evacuation orders began as voluntary on Sunday, but were quickly switched to mandatory as water levels rose. By Monday evening, downtown Fort McMurray, Draper, Waterways, and Taga Nova Industrial Park were submerged or under evacuation orders, according to the Calgary Sun. Voluntary evacuation in place for Grayling Terrace, and the gas was shut off as a precaution. Heat or hot water would not be available to any residents who choose to stay. A boil advisory has also been issued for all of Fort McMurray and the communities of Anzac, Fort McMurray, First Nation number 468, Gregory Lake Estates, and Sparry Creek Estates, the Calgary Sun had reported. 200 people have been rescued already after not following evacuation orders. As of Tuesday, 12,936 residents have been evacuated. And just more footage here of what is going on in Alberta. These are not fun. And we went through this back in 2018 in Buffalo, where we had a very cold snap from Christmas until the 10th day or so of January. And then we went from Arctic brutal temperatures, especially around Christmas. We were -0 many nights. We had to unfreeze water pipes at a residence that we were managing. That took a whole 13 hours to accomplish that. That was a fun day. I'll never forget those 3 weeks, though, because how fast we saw the temperatures snap from frigid temperatures. And then slowly getting back up into the single digits, into the teens, and then the 20s. And then all of a sudden, we got a 65-degree day, like that. We also experienced the ice jam flooding. And the worst part about ice jam flood, and the reason why they shut your gas off, is that your drainages begin to back up when your rivers overflow and creeks overflow. And we were having that issue. Everyone on the block actually had water in their basement at least 3 inches high, if not higher. And I've talked about this before, but it was like something out of a movie. People were knocking on the doors wearing red jumpsuits, warning it was the gas company, asking folks how much water is in your basement. Do we need to turn off the gas? They were trying to figure out if they needed to turn off the gas because of how fast the water was rising. And I tell you, ever since the ice jam flood of 2018, that street, from my knowledge, has continued to flood out basements every time we get heavy rain. So this happened in 2018, continues to affect that neighborhood to this day. And what's going to fix that is infrastructure. And that is an understatement for towns like Cleveland, Chicago, Buffalo, New York, especially Buffalo, just from experience and living there. They've got some very old drainage systems in place still. Some of these have, you can tell a storm drain, a sewer hole, the grates, how old they are. These are, guys, these are late 1800s, no lie. Some parts of Buffalo have sewer grates that are probably as old as from the late 1800s. So you can only imagine the infrastructure. And, thinking back, there was quite a bit of work, pipe work that was done in and out of our neighborhood. But that flood made things complicated the remainder of the year. You talk about floods in basements from just regular thunderstorms. Absolutely ridiculous. Having a pump in your basement at that point was the normal after those ice jam floods. Before that, we never had an issue. So not a fun situation at all for the folks up there in Alberta. And I wanted to show you guys this really quick. I've always seen these clouds in Europe, but this was truly remarkable. And what this is that so much cold air is sinking to the ground that it does this to our cloud deck. And just absolutely breathtaking scene. This was in Oklahoma. This was after a severe thunderstorm. I can tell you, folks, that these kinds of clouds are not usually spotted, especially at that latitude. This is truly a phenomena that you see during solar minimum, but more or less a grand solar minimum when you're talking about location of this particular set of clouds. I've always seen Sweden or Norway, countries like that with these images. Some places, Germany, but usually a more northern area of the planet is where I'm used to seeing these images. So I thought I'd share this as it's all over social media today. Facebook, a lot of weather organizations were sharing this. This happened on April 28th, which was yesterday, after a round of severe thunderstorms that went through. All right, so Michael Moore strikes back, defends anti-renewable energy, planet of the humans. Of course he does, That's not to be surprising. But now he's trying to tie in coronavirus, saying it's a warning from Mother Nature. And this was April 27th, according to USA Today. Michael Moore is teasing his controversial new documentary about the environment. During an appearance on MSNBC Sunday, the filmmaker, 66 years old, shared how the coronavirus pandemic was related to the theme of Planet of the Humans, which examines climate change and the green energy movement. He says, "We are in dangerous shape here, and this pandemic should act as a warning from Mother Nature that our behavior is not appreciated. And the fact that we have treated these species on this planet, species that often give us these viruses, it's a failure of us all who call ourselves environmentalists." He is just all about shaking his finger at everyone. Moore also claimed that corporations and parts of Wall Street have been trying to take over the green energy movement because they see profit in it. Profit, P with an F, not a PH. He says they try to buy off certain people and organizations with the movement. So what do you guys think is happening? Is Michael Moore making a brutal power grab, or maybe even an eventual run at the presidency by putting down all his potential rivals, corporate sellouts? My opinion is no on that. Is Planet of the Humans an exercise in integrity? Is Moore an honest man who may be dead wrong on a few issues, who can no longer stand the money-grubbing hypocrisy of his green fellow travelers? Maybe. Or is there another explanation? Like I said, people that work in the solar industry will tell you that this movie is full of exaggerations. Call it what you want, but I see it as when they're interviewing the people that are selling these products in a convention, and you ask them basic questions about the panels, they don't know. They don't know the answers. The 10-year panel, this is the cherry picking part, I guess, that there's actually 30-year panels out there. Okay, fair enough. There's 30-year panels out there, but they only chose to talk about the 10-year panels. Well, that doesn't make this movie irrelevant because they don't choose to talk about 30-year panels. I can tell you from my experience in research that when you dispose of these solar panels, you have to take them to a special part of a dump. It's like an e-dump where everything with a circuit board of any kind, TVs, stuff like that, you take them to this particular part of the junkyard. You don't mix it in with regular trash. And I always, well, why? Why is that? Well, it's because they have to dispose of this technology a certain way because it's harmful to the atmosphere. Okay, fair enough. At least they're separating it. So to me, it makes sense to hear when I watched the movie and I saw what all goes into making the green energy stuff, and seeing all the stuff we have to do. We have to mine it. We're burning fossil fuels to mine it. So I get it. Where is the savings at when you have to put even more toxic, what should I say? More toxic pollution in the atmosphere when you burn and dispose of these solar panels and other electronic that are supposed to be green technology. Whatever Moore's goals and motivation, Moore's new documentary is a huge challenge to the established green order. Greens desperately want to censor Moore's documentary, but heavy-handed Green attempts to silence the film by one of their own, someone who has a huge following of his own, just to add credibility to Moore's accusations of a widespread Green sellout to these corporate interests. Here's what I think is happening. I think Moore himself was snubbed out of an investment deal that could have made him rich and misunderstood something, and therefore he missed the bus on the green energy movement. So in retaliation, with his Oscar award-winning films, and not everybody likes this guy, I get that, but there are a lot of people that do. So he has the trust of some fans out there. So he purposely used his power, his influence, to bash an industry because he wasn't in on the bigger picture, I guess. That's my opinion. Because there are some exaggerations in the movie. The one I'll name right now is the part where the guy's pointing at 6 or 7 solar panels and is telling the filmmaker that would only power a toaster. That's false. That's a little bit, it doesn't power much, but it does more than a toaster. So to me, it feels like there's truths about how harmful the green energy to make and destroy is to our atmosphere. That's the truth. That biomass is not green energy. That's the truth. And that, when you're talking about burning trees for the biomass, you're cutting down forest lands, big trees that took years to get there. What are we doing to replant? And if you're an AGWist, well, why would you want to cut down trees? Because everyone knows that trees and other vegetation absorb CO2. So if you have less trees, then you have less CO2 absorption, whether or not you need it or not at this point is an opinion. And everyone that follows this channel realizes that it's not that big of a deal. But there are folks out there who think CO2 has something to do with temperature rise. Again, my point, you can't call biomass green when you're destroying something that helps our planet. So there are a lot of good points about why green energy is not reliable. It's telling the truth about that. Right now, it's not. We're not on the grid with green energy right now, and it's going to take years. That's the biggest thing that I see from this flick, is that the amount of time it's realistically going to take is nowhere near what Al Gore and AOC and Bernie Sanders are telling you now. This is not a 5-year plan. This is a multi-decadal plan, folks, before any kind. And we already know, heading into a grand solar minimum, cloud coverage is already bad enough at the very beginning of this grand solar minimum. Imagine what it's going to be like in 10 years as we're coming out of solar cycle 25 and into another deep, deep minimum. All right, let's check out, while we're talking about some cons here. Al Gore falsely attempted to blame fossil fuels for raising the coronavirus death rate during a February 27th MSNBC interview. In reality, economic prosperity brought by the use of abundant, affordable fossil fuels has lower death rates from virus and epidemics. Also, viruses like influenza and COVID-19 thrive in cold climate conditions and are inhibited by warmer temperatures. But, Gore says this is a climate crisis and the COVID pandemic is linked in some ways. The preconditions that raise the death rate from COVID-19, a great many of them are accentuated, made worse by the fossil fuel pollution. I mean, you talk about an opportunist, right? What's that saying they got in Congress? Never waste an emergency or something like that. Never let an emergency go to waste. When these bills are being filled with all these bills that don't have anything to do with the current crisis, but maybe addresses a future agenda. Well, here's another guy pushing stuff like that. Scientists have long known that cold temperatures are a key factor in the annual death toll, influenza, which kills approximately 36,000 Americans a year. Guys, flu season starts around October and ends, and it can end in late May. All right? So for all those people out there who say 36,000 people die from the flu, well, here's your flu numbers from October to May. 36,000 people die from the flu. You are correct. Think about that when you put that in perspective with COVID-19 and how many Americans have lost their lives just in a month and 2 weeks. We're at 60,000 deaths according to Worldometers right now. Insane. And meanwhile, Gore, let's kick them while they're down, put more fear in everyone. Now he's going to try to blame fossil fuel organizations for the death rates being increased for COVID. This article is written very nicely. It goes on saying here, I already read that. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control documents that flu season ramps up when the weather turns cold, then peters out when warm temperatures return. According to CDC, influenza activity often begins to increase in October. Most of the time, activity peaks between December and February, although activity can last through May. So there you go. There's your timeline, October to May. Maybe. It peaks between December and February. It goes away closer to April. In the Southern Hemisphere, he explains right now they're going through their fall, winter, so the influenza season is ramping up right now in the Southern Hemisphere, which also means we could see more COVID cases as well. But it says here, at least in regions that have a winter season, influenza viruses survives longer in cold, dry air, so it has a greater chance of infecting other people. Scientists are still learning about COVID-19, but preliminary evidence, I can say that, indicates warmer temperatures have either minor or significant impacts, reducing the spread and harm of coronavirus. Warmer temperatures certainly do not make COVID-19 worse. Now, this was an interesting part that I liked about this article here, because we're talking about pollution, right? In his MSNBC interview, Gore doubled down on his reckless assertions. He attempted to link fossil fuels to high asthma rates, which he claimed are worse by which he claimed are made worse by the coronavirus. However, Even as air pollution in the United States has consistently and sharply declined since the 1970s, asthma rates have increased substantially. This contradicts the assertion that air pollution causes asthma. And it made me think for a minute. If we've seen asthma cases increase over the past several decades, well, let's think about that for a minute. I mean, we have been dealing with some pretty deep solar minimums since solar cycle 23. 23 got a little deeper, 24 got a lot deeper, 25 is going to be even deeper. So let's put that in perspective, that we're now looking at more cloud coverage, more moisture, cooler temperatures. What thrives in cool, dark conditions with moisture? Mold. Other allergens like that floating around in the air. So if asthma conditions are increasing, in my opinion, thanks to Sterling Burnett of the Heartland Institute, which very good guy here, he does great work. But this article made me think about that. Okay, so Gore is saying the air pollution is making the COVID-19 deaths worse, and rates have decreased in air pollution, which is correct. I mean, look at where we've been. Like back in the 70s when we made cars, think about the emissions from the cars back then, how much more they were, how much we didn't have the EPA regulations in place back then in the 60s and 70s. So absolutely, there was a lot more coal being burned. There was a lot of everything being burned in the atmosphere back in those days. We've become smarter and learned how to clean up this industry a lot since the 70s. So if pollution's going down, asthma rates are going up. To me, the climate has something to do with asthma rates going up because of all the allergens that are carried in the cool, moist, dark conditions that we are currently experiencing as we are just beginning this grand solar minimum. And I expect to see, asthma cases continue to go on the rise, unfortunately, as we get through this GSM. So good point there about the air pollution going down, asthma rates going up. As explained by researcher Joel Schwartz in his paper, Facts Not Fear, on air pollution, the indice of asthma rose 75% from 1980 to 1996 and nearly doubled for children. And that is, I am part of that statistic, just to let you guys, I had horrible asthma as a child from the ages of 5 through 13. However, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency documents that air pollution has declined 74% since the 1970s over the same time period that asthma worsened. How about that? 74% since the 1970s. Like I said, I believe it. We are burning fossil fuels much cleaner than what we used to as far as air pollution goes. In the end, climate change is neither causing nor exacerbating any identifiable illness or disease, be it COVID-19 or anything else. To the extent a modestly warming planet may impact COVID-19, the impact is almost certainly to reduce the spread of the disease and save many human lives. Again, Sterling Burnett, PhD in Managing Editor of Environment and Climate News and a Research Fellow of the Environment and Energy Policy at the Heartland Institute. Again, enjoy the work this gentleman puts out. And I thought I'd share this with you just because, it's man, bear, pig, right? He'll say anything to get on TV. Let's take a look at our crop report. The drought monitor hasn't changed much. Still Northern California area with some light drought. Southern tips of Texas still in a light drought. That could change. I'll show you guys why I'm saying that here in a bit. Percentage of corn planted. I'm seeing some mixed numbers here. I'm seeing some areas doing better than last year and some that are doing worse. And last year we had a lot of late crops. For instance, this year, right now, 17% of the corn has been planted in Colorado. Last year, this time was only 6%. That's a huge jump from the previous week of 4%. The 5-year average is 9%, so we're ahead in Colorado. We're also up in Illinois, which was a really late state last year. Indiana, same story. We're ahead in Indiana by a lot. Iowa, also up by a lot. And then Kansas, surprisingly, is down a little bit from last year. Kentucky is crushing last year's numbers. Minnesota is also crushing last year's numbers. And I know that's a huge sigh of relief. Last week was 1%. This week is 40% of the corn has been planted in Minnesota. Michigan, 3%. Missouri, 25%. And last year it was 37% already in the ground. So now we're starting to see areas that are behind, but not as many as we had last year. Just looking at these new updated numbers, it's early still, but we don't have a lot of states that are behind from last year. Texas and Tennessee were the two best states. They are already having a good start. Wisconsin already up as well. So as you guys can see, the plant season so far for the beginning of 2020 is in a much better shape than a lot of folks had thought we would be for the plant for this year. Now, still got a long spring to go, a lot of planting still to be done, but in some areas we are seeing some positive notes here. North Carolina, 62%. They also did very well last year. They're already ahead. Last year this time was 46. Now that was a bad start for them. The average 5 year is 61%. New England, believe it or not, is ahead. Or I'm sorry, New England. Nebraska. This ain't Tecmo Bowl here. Nebraska is up 20% this year, 12% last year at this time. By the way, hello, Matt. Hope everything's going well. I know saw your video on some of the situation of your grain in the silo. I hope everything works out good for you as far as that goes. But so yeah, there's some positive news here so far of when it comes to the crop report. Soybeans planted. Oh, the soybeans always seem to outperform what the corn's doing, even during bad conditions. And right now, that's the same story on the soybean situation. Percentage planted. A lot of areas are up from last year, but last year was bad. So when you look at the 5 year averages, places like Illinois, where it's 31 5 year average on corn, it's 37 this year. Not bad. The 5 year averages give you a better idea of where the state usually is when it comes to percentage corn. Like Kentucky, their 5 year average is 27%. Right now, they're at 44%. So they're doing excellent right now. Same. Now, places like Missouri, they are a little behind right now. 25% has been planted. Last year, it was 37% that was planted right now. So this is actually a decrease from last year. And the 5 year average for this time of year is 46. Now, there's a lot of flooding going on across that region, so that doesn't really surprise me. North Dakota, 0%. Last year, this time was 1%. So there's not very many horrible starts right now. But again, this could change in percentage of corn emerged as we continue through our spring and as we get flooding rains and tornadoes and other damaging factors to crops. So just because it's planted, now we got to watch the percentage that will become emerged. That's the next step when these crops start coming out. Do they make it? Do they survive storms, floods, what have you, or freezes? There's still a chance of that. Now, I'll show you that, guys, here just in a minute. And before I leave this here, oats, all that stuff right now, the peanuts, oats especially doing very well in Iowa, doing very well in Minnesota, doing very well in Nebraska, Ohio, pretty good in Ohio. All these states are above their 5 year averages as well. So oats had a great season. Winter wheat also looks like that it is doing pretty good in states like Arkansas, California as well. Missouri is actually doing pretty good right now, 20% headed. So again, this could be a lot worse. But like I said, spring's not over yet. So I'm not going to sit here and, declare victory just quite yet for this plant season. Let me go over to the weather app here, and I'll just, that way we can get all the states in the picture here. Suitable days for work. During the South, Mississippi is the worst, 2.1 days. Lots of storms, lots of flooding. That's to be expected. 3.7, it could be a little modest there, or a little generous, I should say, in Alabama. And Georgia as well, 4.3. The rest of the region looks pretty good. Ohio is not looking good, though. 2.7 days of workable days in the field. 4 for the Dakotas, 5.7 for South Dakota, Nebraska almost a full week. Kansas almost a full week. Texas doing pretty good, 5.9. Tennessee at 3.5 days, and Kentucky at 4.1 days of suitable field work. So considering last year, we had a lot more yellow and orange on this map. And that's due to colder temperatures that happened last year and a lot more widespread flooding that we had as well. That is not taking place in as many spots. But again, like I said, it's still early. Most people get their crop in the ground late May, first week of June. That's when we can really get a good glance at what we got done as far as amount of crop that was planted. But like I said, this was a positive report, and it was good to see. This was as of April 26th, 2020. So before we get into the U.S., I thought I'd go ahead and do a brief report for the European areas here in the U.K. The U.K. weather report brought to you by the MET. Yeah, let me get this map rolling for you guys here. There you go. All right, so here's what we're looking at here in the next few days. This evening and tonight, bands of rain moving northeast with clear intervals and showers following to England and Wales by the morning. Chilly in the west and in the north as well, with a touch of rural frost, milder elsewhere. Let's see if I can get through this here, Maury. Windy in the southwest of England and Wales. On Thursday, rather cloudy with brief sunny intervals and showers. The showers heavy with thunder in places. Milder for most, but breezy in the south, also for the far north. And the outlook Friday to Sunday, sunshine and scattered showers on Friday and Saturday, locally heavy. Northern areas mainly dry, bright on Sunday with clouds and rain spread northeast across southwestern and some central areas. And as you guys see here, this is the GFS outlook with the moisture that we can expect here in the UK and other European nations. Seeing still some snow in the Norway, Sweden areas, Finland as well. That's typical for this time of year still, but a lot more rain than snow in the UK, Germany, France, Spain, Poland, Denmark. Definitely springtime-like conditions over here in the European nations. All right, so let's take a look at our GFS outlook, starting with today's weather. System in the Gulf, kind of interesting down here. This was falling south last night, and it continued to plunge into the Gulf, and this is just going to go along with this low pressure system now. So check this out. Lots of rain on the way for Tennessee, Kentucky, parts of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. Moderate rain showers in northeast Cleveland and also in Pennsylvania. Western New York, you'll see your rain start up on Thursday, April 30th, as it spreads to the capital region and near New York City by early Friday, May 1st. Heavy rains go off the coast of the United States. Moderate to heavy rain to the capital region of New York into Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut. Light rain follows this system by Saturday, May 2nd. As it's pretty quiet for the most part on Saturday, May 2nd, 2020. And also, it's going to be a nice, breezy, warm day as well for most of us. You guys can see the red lines. Mild temperatures are expected up here in upstate New York on Sunday. Not a bad-looking day. Now, some rain will start to develop across the Midwest into the Ohio Valley. Clouds will also start forming in the Northeast as well, but temperatures ranging anywhere from mid-50s to the low 70s from parts of the Midwest into the Northeast this weekend. And then May 4th, may the 4th be with you, Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, more rain heading your way, and rain developing also behind that in Nebraska. Hello, watch out, Matt, South Dakota, North Dakota, and the Northwest region. Alberta and BC looking at potential snow after getting these ice jam floods. More cold weather is on the way for also the northwestern parts of the United States overnight. By May 5th, cold front trying to make its way into the Northeast. More rain across the Midwest, parts of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio Valley, through Virginia. And then May 6th, still this cold air mass is trying to stay put in the Northeast during the daytime temperatures. And some spotty snowflakes trying to make its way here on May 7th, May 8th in western New York, parts of, that's right, Wisconsin, possibly in northern parts of Michigan by May 8th, and then by early overnight Friday, May 8th, snow showers. Huge cold front too, guys. Dip into the Great Lakes, northern plain states, all the Northeast. But snow is very likely for New York and upstate New York by Friday, May 8th. And that cold air just kind of hangs out and sticks around for a little while. Now look at this. Right down in this region right here, guys. This is Saturday, May 9th. Expecting some light snow possibly for far western parts of Virginia and the upper elevations. May 9th. Let's continue this GFS forecast. And I'm going to focus on the Northeast right now, and then we'll go back to the Gulf here just in a second. Another system moving through on May 11th, bringing some possible light snowflakes to the upstate New York and most of New England by May 11th. And then we may see an indication that that warmer air will finally start pushing more further north by May 13th. But this cold front is pesky and stubborn and does not want to go anywhere. I know the tip part of Maine will definitely see cold air trying to hang on. If you live Vermont and back, you're going to experience spring-like temperatures, but anything past Vermont could see some raw 40s and low 50 temperatures for May 15th. Now, let's go back a few days here because it stays pretty dry and quiet across most parts of the South, and they need the break. So we got one system that goes, a really quick system across the Midwest into the South, not really deep South, off to the Atlantic part of the states. This is light, moderate rain. Maybe some severe weather here on Wednesday, May 6th, and that's going to be for the northeastern parts of Tennessee, West Virginia, and Virginia as well. North Carolina could be in on that action as well. But for the most part, pretty quiet compared to what we've seen in the South. And then around May 7th, we see this trend here where we got moisture coming up through Mexico into Texas. And this is where I think this system lasts for several days and brings multiple rounds of rain to South Texas. This is where I believe this might be able to help the drought situation in the far parts of southern Texas. But we get a pretty long break here for the South. But you can guarantee this system here, and again, GFS is not usually reliable this far out, but there are flashes of things that I see from GFS that come and go. And the reason why I'm mentioning that now is because the snow that I'm talking about right here on the 8th, GFS showed me this 4 days ago. That's when I got told that you can't rely on GFS that far out. You're right. But the one thing I noticed is that when you look at the revised forecast and it still shows the snow on a different day, maybe a little bit earlier, well, that's more feasible, in my opinion, to be May 8th and not May 12th. So we'll see. But I'd have to stick with this May 8th through the May 11th date of possible snow shower. Nothing crazy, but light snowfall, possibly a coating to an inch for most places in New York. But to me, this is something I've seen before where GFS will flash something that's 16 days out. And then 4 days later, during those 4 days, you won't see the storm. And then it's back. It shows in a different form. Maybe it's on a different date. Maybe it's a different intensity. So this is twice now that GFS is trying to tell us that we are expecting some snow and cold enough temperatures for this region to expect snow showers. For May 8th it's pretty deep into May. We didn't have snow or ice in May of last year. I can tell you that up here. So I'm ready for the warm temperatures. I'm ready to open up all these windows, get some fresh air in here, go outside, start digging our new garden. We started some planting. Mari started some planting, I should say. Her and her daughter got started on some plants that we can grow indoors and outdoors as well. I'm ready for the warm weather. But this GFS report really, to me, tells me that it's going to try to get to be spring, but still dealing with some colder temperatures through April, the end of April into early May, possibly as late as mid-May. There's that cold front for that snow to be possible. I mean, we're on that break, guys, in the Northeast. The rest of the country looks great for the middle of May. Look at that. This is what it's supposed to look like for mid-May for the most of the United States. So this is a good indication that for the most part, we should see the weather get its act together. But in the Northeast and the Northwest, I have a feeling we could see these below average temperatures more than often in these regions, the Northwest and the Northeast. States in the middle plain states and upper plains and Midwest. The good news about this kind of weather right here, especially this early, and I know it's not enough, it's not a lot, but for this time of year, if you live in this region of the United States and you're a farmer, this is what you want to see. That increasing, or that temperature warming up each day, continuing to stay strong. Look at that. So this is a farmer's delight. Plus, we do have a lot less radical weather, I should say. Not as many as extremes in the near future. We will start sparking up more activity towards mid-month, but we do get, it looks like we get a few good days to actually dry out. And I know across parts of the South, they need a few weeks to clean up storm damage from tornadoes, flooding, straight winds, hail, you name it. The South has been through some rough stuff this spring already. I showed you guys the tornado counts. We're already at 492 as of April 26th. The maximum record to date is 551. So we'll continue to watch that. And it has a very good chance of slaughtering that record, unfortunately. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me. Mari, would you like to say hello or goodbye to anybody who's out there in the chat?
Hello and goodbye. I actually pulled the chat to see. I told them I'm doing a news of the weird, something interesting and fun to sort of shake off all the other typical news that we're hearing, gloom and doom. Maybe we can, have a little fun with it. I was on the fence whether to do a morning coffee talk kind of show or a nighttime show. Overwhelmingly, people are requiring nighttime chat for that. So I will plan nighttime. I got to look at the schedule. I'm thinking probably Saturday night.
That'll be fun.
The Saturday night, and then we'll have the call-in shows happening on Friday on both channels, I believe.
Yes.
Something like that. So since we are picking up the pace, News of the Weird Saturday, and I will post the times and all that. We're starting to get somewhat of a schedule formed. It's getting closer than we ever had. We want to make it realistic and not too labor intensive, since YouTube, likes to limit us.
Right.
Like today's show.
It's because I said man, bear, pig. So.
So that's why then.
And also too, the politics show that we started up on WTF Sky, Middleman Politics. It's on Mondays at 5:30. That could be more than once a week in the future. It just depends on how we feel with the workload and what things are looking like in the future. It could be a twice a week show. Mari, just like with the weird news stuff that we're doing on Saturday night, that's going to be fun because it's Saturday night. We can have a laugh. It doesn't have to be serious. The political show is probably going to be serious. We could probably find something else to do as filler on WTF Sky during the week too, to kind of help, just cover different things in the news that are being forgotten because of
COVID. There's so much being missed because the news is taken over with like a handful of topics that are being drilled in everyone's head over and over and over again. There's so many other things going on.
But here's the thing. So the Weird News show on Saturday, if we do a show on Friday night, we're probably going to talk about COVID. So I get it. That is an area where we can vent about that topic. But we're trying to develop programming that doesn't revolve around it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get the schedule so we can actually stick to it and it won't overwhelm us with everything else that we have going on. So it's a strategic planning. So I'm excited about it. I posted in the chat earlier a link to Patreon. We are member funded by our viewers, so I'd just like to give a shout out to everyone who does support this channel. Thank you so much. And don't forget to like and share and all that. I also posted a link for our Teespring. We still have t-shirts up. I'm going to be designing some new ones soon, some clever ones. I think I feel very compelled to make COVID shirts just because there's a couple good ones I have in mind. So I might post some new ones next week, Jake.
So here we go. Doug, real quick. oh no, political shows stir up problems. We did one Monday night, and this is different from watching Fox News or CNN. I am reporting on both sides of the aisle. I'm showing Democratic news and Republican news and independent news. And it's not a show that picks either side. It's just reporting the news of the politics around our government. Sure, there will be some opinions, but the best part about the crowd that showed up on Monday, not one argument, not one yelling, not one name calling, and there were mixed views in that group chat that we had that day when we did the politics show. So yes, you're right. Usually politics is nothing but a stirring. It gets people riled up, but it's the way you present the news. You have to do it in a sense that's just reporting the news and not making it sensational. And also, these are things that I feel like that every American should be aware of, not just Republicans or Democrats, but both sides of the fence should be aware. And that's kind of what we're basing the program on, is just talking, a generalized discussion about what's happening in our country, government, where it does with the economy, where it has anything to do with Corona or whatever. But we're looking at this in the middle, hence the title of the program, Middleman Politics. So we want to be in the middle. If you don't like right-wing people or you don't like left-wing people, that's fine. But from what I saw in the chat, everybody was very respectful to each other. No name calling. So I was very impressed. The first show went without a hitch. Can't promise that every time, but
it's a balancing
It's a touchy
act.
subject.
It's bipartisan discussion, being objective. Where can you find news these days that's truly agenda-free, that discusses both, sides? It's hard to find people willing to try to be objective enough to look at the right side and say good and bad, and look at the other side and see good and bad. There's good and bad on both sides, and trying to bring some kind of rationale to what's going on. Hopefully we'll have some great solution-based conversations, and both sides will start being perhaps less extreme. Because I feel like the label left, right, Republican, Democrat, everything is sort of gone to the extreme.
Yep.
There's no normality left.
No.
Everyone has gone extremist,
and
for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at YouTube, there's a lot of alternative media out there, and it's either extreme left or extreme right. And I know a lot of us would rather be that middle part, where it's not so stressful, where it's not so intense. And that's where I feel like we need to be as a country. So the point of the show is just try to bring people together and see both sides of the story, not just be. There's a lot of judgmental comments that are made about people who vote for a certain party, and I don't think it's fair, because I don't believe that all Trump supporters are the same, and I don't believe that all Bernie supporters are the same. So there's a lot more to it, and I just hope we can kind of get back to stop judging a book by its cover, because that's happening a lot nowadays, and we're too far advanced as a civilization to resort to such immaturity and ignorance. We're smarter than that. We
need more intellectual discussions. Yep. And we have to be open to the idea that there's a lot of unknowns out there, and not everyone has the perfect answer. And we have to be forgiving and understanding of that, and just try to do our best to see both sides. I would love to see some type of movement in society where people do start seeing that it is a balancing act, and being less moved to choose a side, and being more of a fence sitter, and being more objective, and making change going into the future. Because right now our future is going to rely on adapting society to our new way of life, whether it's dealing with the climatic changes or how society manages pathogens or whatever. It's right. Multifaceted. So anyway, I'm going to shut up now, Dave.
You're fine. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this afternoon's Grand Solar Minimum News Update. Be sure to join us Friday night. We'll be doing a call-in show as well. And both channels, WTF Sky Friday night and also GSM Friday night as well. We hope everyone can tune in on Friday. And I think if any news is breaking over the weekend, we will do a show as well. But expect more from both of our sister channel, WTF Sky and Grand Solar Minimum News, as we continue to get through this pandemic the best that we can, guys. All right. Hope everyone stays safe, and we will talk soon.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform, buy a t-shirt, or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.